Yeah. Welcome out, everybody, once again to your Boom Bap Breakfast right here, the RemiX Morning Show on Black Power Media. I go by the name of the Ear Doctor, and your host for today is Dr. Jared Ball. And burn it down, Kim Brown. Let's go.
Blocka. Good morning. Greetings, everybody. Good to see you all. It's good to be back on. I missed the remix.
Good
when I'm not on it.
Jared. Is that a mushroom belt that your daddy is wearing, Jared? Jared, did you know that the lining of the jacket had mushrooms in the jacket, Jared?
You gotta coordinate. Man, shout out to John Witherspoon. Rest in power, man.
Rest in
peace. And that whole Boomerang movie, that whole joint, underrated.
So underrated by whom, Jared? This is my question.
Well, I don't know. You know what? I just
made.
Fair enough.
Hey,
I just feel like it doesn't get. Yeah, go ahead.
My bad. We was talking about top things. We're gonna have to come back and talk top movies too. We definitely got to talk top movies.
Well, this morning I got to start with. I want to set that off by pun intended by shout out to Big Daddy Kane and KRS. I didn't get in on that discussion. I missed that discussion you all had on that joint. But anyway, but Kamal said something ridiculous yesterday that I wanted to address out the gate, and I was hoping he would be here because I've been anxious since I heard him say this. This is what I think is going to set up, the coming discussions and future debates. But he said that Lauryn Hill's Miseducation of Lauryn Hill is the best album in hip hop history. And I nearly crashed the car. I was like, no disrespect to Lauryn and all those that apparently she didn't give enough credit to for helping write the album and all that stuff. But no disrespect to her. She's one of my favorite MCs and artists, period. But that album doesn't come close to making my top 10.
Well.
And look what the cat dragged it. And is he trying to match? Are we trying to match today? What the hell is going on?
That's what I'm talking about.
Y'all look like y'all going for a job interview.
That's what I'm talking about. It's
We're going for the same job. Kamal and I are constantly competing. We're always in competition for the same job. So,
but it's like we like twins. But he's Danny DeVito character. I'm the Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Relax.
Anyway, keep that same energy, because as I read off, I just wrote down. As soon as I pulled over yesterday, I scribbled down in my notes albums that are better than Lauryn Hill's.
Oh shit!
First of all, and she's on one of them because the score from the Fugees is way better as a hip hop album than Miseducation. Way better. 3 Feet High and Rising, Midnight Marauders, Low End Theory, Illmatic, Reasonable Doubt, It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back, Black Star, Let's Get Free. One I know nobody's going to have on there, Royalty Check, the album DJ Premier and Bumpy Knuckles did together a couple years ago, is way better than that. Paid in Full, Eric B. And just to give you a new one, and because I realize that unfortunately there are no sisters on my list, I'm going to show you who's now going to crack, even though I have her as number 12 on this list here, is going to crack that top 10. I want to show you who's going to crack that top 10, because it's a brand new album, it's a brand new video, and she is the beast. And this album dusts Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. This album right here, fresh out the gate, dusts. And as she said, I'm coming for my idols. I'm taking all your titles. Let's go.
I'm the rapper for the readers, thinking in the leaders from Rodeo to the Alameda. Favorite teacher, smarter than your average Yogi Bear, follow the leader.
What?
Fancy like smoke paprika, truffle butter from the gutter, glad to meet you. I'm
go.
the juju that'll free you, innovative, ultra creative, entrepreneur. I can lead you to the river, give you something man a tongue can't deliver.
Yes.
Like heaven, tickle your mental and make.
All right, stop it, Jared. You're killing him. You're killing him, Jared.
I'm killing him too much. Moo fresh.
You're just abusing him now.
I was gonna let it go because she sings in the hook. So just to show you that even as a vocalist, she out sings Lauren, she out raps Lauren, and writes her own music. Now
Apparently he bumped his head. Apparently he bumped his head really hard, and somehow got deranged about what a top hip hop album should be. Just can't just name off albums. Lauren's album had flow, it had politics, it told a story, it had dope rhymes. She sung, she brought all that she brought in to that album, which made everybody get that album and sit with themselves in an emotional state and be like, what the fuck am I listening to? What am I hearing about my life choices, the world around me, everything. That what that dog girl that you just brought on, whatever she was doing.
Whoa.
That's a cheap imitation of Lauren.
In the words of Nora, you need to relax, son. First of all, she's dope. Even Eve, the album dropped by Rhapsody. You got to check that one out.
That album is better than Miseducation? Is that what you're telling me, dear doctor?
Which one?
I don't hear from Jared.
Moo Fresh?
Yeah.
Nah, it's not.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
It's not.
You haven't even heard
it's a good album, but it ain't no Miseducation.
The Miseducation was like one of those turning point albums.
Yeah.
You heard the Miseducation.
The only difference,
the hip-hop world, the world stopped. It stopped.
The only difference is that Moo Fresh doesn't get the push from the commercial world. There's no way. If you listen to this album, Rap God, Work, her lyrics, her vocal, I'm telling you, it's better. She's just better. Like she said, I'm coming for my idols. I'm taking all your titles. Lauren was one of her idols, and she's taking that title from her and all the other ones.
I got one question, Jared.
She dropped that title decades ago. She didn't even lose her title. She dropped it.
Jared, can you skip a song on Moomoo's album?
No, not this new one.
You can't.
This new one, I can't. And I don't think any. Well, I don't know. Well, okay.
I'm out of here. I catch y'all in the break.
All right, thanks here, doctor.
Kim, you ain't got my back. You quiet over there with the bathrobe. You got the bathrobe on? What's going on with you over there?
I haven't heard the new Moo Fresh album, first of all, and I mean, I disagree that Lauren, that the Miseducation is the greatest rap album of all time come out. I think that's jumping out there quite a bit.
I think it's the greatest of all time, actually.
I mean, because
for everything included in it, I'm going to for everything.
I got so rinsed. That album got so rinsed. They played, 5 or 6 songs off that album all the time, every day. Like I got tired of hearing Miseducation, to be honest.
You better watch out. Come on, son. Come on now. Don't be hating.
Again, it's not that the album is bad. We're talking about best ever. And I think all of the ones on my list beat that. So in terms of lyricism, political content, I mean, it takes a nation of millions to hold us back.
I'm sorry. You mean if you put them all together, they beat her? Yes, you're. Okay. I mean, of course.
No.
Of course, if you combine all those albums and then they equal what the Miseducation.
And you think as a rap album, it's better than Illmatic?
You're correct. I just named one.
Yes, I do think Miseducation is better than Illmatic, but I don't think Miseducation is better than like Midnight Marauders. Like, not even close to me. Sorry. No. I mean, listen, Illmatic is what it was. Illmatic is what it was because of the production, and possibly, Miseducation is what it was because of the production.
I'm sorry. Is that part of the best rap? Now you got Siemens Furniture, and I love the song. Don't get me wrong, but
stop playing. I mean, but again, like you said, you got to take all told. You taking one line out of that whole album.
No, and it was hilarious. It was great, but I'm just saying,
that's ever. Terrible.
By the way, I didn't catch that Siemens Furniture reference until I moved to Philadelphia, because I was like, you bust off on your couch, now you got Siemens Furniture. I just thought he was just being nasty, and then I get to Philly and there's a store, Siemens Furniture. I'm like, oh, now what Fife was saying makes sense. But anyway, that's just random.
Rest in peace to Fife too. Rest in power to Fife.
Fife dog,
really good dude. Got to meet him in the green room once back in the day. Frostburg in Western Maryland, where Mama's Biscuits would later become the greatest funk band from 1997 to 1999. So shout out to
energetic, who me sound pathetic. When's the last time you heard a Funky Diabetic? Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
No, I don't know.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, Fife was underrated. Fife again is one of those underrated. He was a good matchup with Q because he had like his lines were memorable. I mean, like you remember Fife lines, yeah.
Very much so. Very
Like,
much.
Anyway, Ear Doctor said I should have had the purple tape on my list because I had no Wu on my list, and I think he makes a good point about Wu in general. I'm not a purple tape aficionado, I have to admit. So I don't know.
I was watching the stuff on Showtime, not Showtime, on Hulu, I guess.
Hulu.
Yeah, the new season or whatever. So they're about to break big and all that kind of stuff. My man bought his.
So the new season is now out.
I
saw the first one.
The new season is out. I've been watching it with the bowl of cereal late at night, B. Been doing my thing. Checking out the Wu, the history of the Wu.
Yeah.
It's a little dramatized. Some of it is like
that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. You dramatize it. It's all right.
That's true. People snatching guns out of people's hand like they James Bond and shit. I'd be like,
oh wow.
I'm like, son, come on now.
I mean, and tragically, you know, it's really only the Wu-Tang who can still tell the story of Old Dirty Bastard in its proper context. Like, I mean, I feel like Old Dirty to this day is still one of the most underrated MCs of his era. And people laugh at me when I say that. I'm like, listen. Old Dirty was spitting. And on top of that, Old Dirty, you may not think that he was singing, but on the low, the brother was singing. Like, honestly, like that album on my wall, that's one of my favorites. It is. That might be in my personal top 5. But
that's interesting. I have to admit, shout out to my man Virgil back at Frostburg State, who back in the early 90s was trying to put me on the Wu when they first dropped, and I was just not. And because when I listened to Wu, I was like, I don't like you. They're supposed to be deep, and I don't understand anything that they're saying. Like, what is like? How do you know that they're deep? You don't understand what they're saying. You don't know. That's how I was like. That's how I was coming with. Like, just because you don't get it doesn't mean they're deep. But other than the production, which I felt immediately, I was just like, what is, anyway. But I thought it was interesting that Method Man was a lacrosse player at a white prep school in Long Island. That's or was he? Was it Staten at the time? I don't know. And one of the islands.
Yeah.
But I was shocked at that. I thought that part was wild. I was like, look at my man running on the lacrosse field at whatever prep. I was like, wow, okay. I didn't know that part.
Everybody sort of, I don't know his, even through the Wu story, I'm sure I don't know his complete background, but everybody does, everybody's like first-rate drug dealers. Everybody's, again, snatching guns, got gangs, shooting people. I was like, y'all did a lot. Y'all did a lot for a music group. I'm just saying.
So when the Kamal Franklin story is told, it's not going to be told. It's not going to be like
projects. When I tell my story about how I ran Albany projects, you know what I'm saying?
How you ran them joints.
The drug trade, you know what I'm saying? Everything. All the bodegas had to pay tax.
I'm saying it wasn't Frank White. Kamal was in that joint. If a nickel bag gets moved in the park, I want
exactly. I knew about it. That'd be my people. We did the whole logo. That was all me. I meant the logos on bags. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, well, speaking of being on point and on Showtime and rebranding himself, the Ear Doctor looks like he's back and on stage somewhere. Is he winning a Blosker this morning?
Oh,
hey, you already know it. Hey, you know somebody's serious when they clap hands like this when they talking. He said he's gonna be running the whole Albany project.
I ran the project.
That's been his wish for a minute. It seems like
it's time to go.
Yo, so we're gonna rock out. We're gonna man, this one is well deserved. So please make sure y'all stay tuned for this one because this is I'm about to give a Blosker to well deserved. So let's get right to it right here, right now on the Remix Show.
It's indeed the remix.
Yeah. Once again, I got the fresh suit on. We in the building right here, Black Power Media, the Remix Morning Show. As you know, at this time, I like to give a Blosker. You like, what is a Blosker? It is a Black Oscar. It is for our actors and actresses. We also got Blammies, too. That's coming, too. We got Blammies. But check us out. So for today, before we get into that, come on, man. You know what I got to say. Make sure y'all hit that like, subscribe button. Make sure y'all become members. Make sure y'all go to patreon.com, drop some change in the bucket, and let's make this thing grow, y'all. This show needs to be everywhere. Everybody needs to be watching this. And I'm not just saying that because I'm president. I'm saying it because I like the show. But anyway, let's get to it. So who should get a Blaska today? No other than this beautiful sister that's been in so many shows, Loretta Devine. That's right. You might have seen her in one of her best shows. She started back in 1981 doing Broadway on the production of Dreamgirls. That's right. She was original Dreamgirl member on Broadway. You also seen her in Waiting to Exhale. Earlier now, you've seen her on the Carmichael Show. She also was in the Broadway The Wiz as the Good Witch of the South. Now, let me tell you, this sister has done over at least 60 films. 60 films. She's done at least 50 TV shows where we're talking about Grey's Anatomy. We talk about P-Valley, Blackish, the Black Lady sketch show, Family Reunion. And matter of fact, I don't want to just talk about it. I want to show something where she did her thing back in the day on a show called The Colored Museum, which came back out in 1991. Yes, 1991. Let's get a little bit of piece of how Loretta Devine gets down in case you didn't know. Check this out. The Color Museum, 1991.
What is it? Check out, girlfriend. Ooh, I don't believe it. Will you just look at her, trying to paint some life into that face of hers. You think she realized by now it's the hair? It's all about the hair.
Hair? What hair? She ain't got no hair. She done died, fried, and chemicalized her head to death.
And all that's left is that butt-naked scalp of hers, sitting up there apologizing for being odd-shaped and ugly.
Ooh, girl, stop.
Woo, man, it was going in on old girl. But that's what it is. We got to give it up. The Blaska goes to no other than Loretta Devine. That's right. Big up to Loretta Devine. Please continue to give us great stories, great art, like you always been doing. Now, let's take it back to the morning crew. You know how we do. Loretta.
I'm glad you had a clip because I feel like, you know, for such an accomplished artist, she deserved a few more pixels on that JPEG. I was like, why is she so blurry? Like, I can't even see who she is. Like, she's getting an award.
It's the Blaskas. It's the Blaskas, Jared. It's the Blaskas.
Hey, and she also got Emmy Awards for just being a guest host on Grey's Anatomy or different TV shows. I'm talking about just being a guest, coming and getting Emmys. She's always been a great actress.
Sorry, she passed.
Right on.
She ain't passed.
Come
I'm out of here, man. I can't with this dude.
Sorry.
Shut up, Kamal.
Kamal is a mess. That's terrible.
Menace. Just out here.
That's
just
terrible.
A menace out here on these YouTube streets.
Well, listen, let's get to some of these news stories. Ear Doctor, I know, shout out to Sister May recovering, getting healthy. Ear Doctor is handling the boards, and so shout out to him as well, handling double duty this morning. But let's spin that globe and get to some of these stories. It's the Remix Morning Show here in Black Power Media. And as we do at this time, let's get into the news. What's up, Kim?
Are we frozen or is my computer just frozen? Can y'all hear me?
I hear and see you fine, and
Okay.
everybody else. So the world seems fine from my rose-colored lenses over here.
Wonderful. We shall proceed on that path. We're gonna ease on down that road. Let's go. Perhaps it is just I having problems over here. So,
I don't know. As soon as she said that, she froze though a little bit.
So should does that then mean I should jump off with the first story then?
You should jump off because she's freezing a little bit.
Is she freezing a little bit?
Okay. Well, it looks like it's come on back better. Online. Is that better?
Okay. It's good. It's getting better. Yeah. You're freezing up a little bit though. Let Jared go first.
Okay.
That's there.
Okay. Well, I know the actual news of this story broke before the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who has become affectionately known as RBG to some of her liberal Democratic Party fans and followers. But this bit about her in this story was resurfaced again over the weekend, this past weekend. And something that I've come to start to like. I don't watch any of the Sunday morning news programs on commercial media anymore, but I do like watching this Katie Halper and Matt Taibbi Monday morning roundup that they do. And I think they do this on purpose. They schedule it to start at 10 a.m. Mondays so it doesn't conflict with I Mix What I Like or any of the programming here at BPM. So I'm sure I'm sure that's what the plan is. And I appreciate that they work with us on this. But they caught this little bit about the censoring of Katie Couric censoring the story of Ruth Bader Ginsburg dissing Colin Kaepernick. And I thought this was pretty interesting. So I just wanted to come back to it here briefly.
Katie Couric has a book coming out. And
another Eddie Munster
admits that she omitted some comments that the late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg made during an interview years ago with Couric. So let me read part of the book so Phil knows what the context is. She says, I faced a conundrum when I asked RBG what she thought about Colin Kaepernick taking a knee during the anthem to protect police killings of black men. I think it's dumb and disrespectful, she told me. And then she went on. So she felt torn. A Supreme Court aide called and asked her not to air that part of the interview. She did air a portion of the interview, but she took some out. Here's what she says. She split the difference. She left in Ginsburg's harsh characterization of Kaepernick's actions, but left out the following quote. Quote, it's contempt for a government that has made it possible for their parents and their grandparents to live a decent life. So she omitted a key part of the interview with a Supreme Court justice. And she's getting a lot of criticism for this. Robert Couric says she still wrestles with the decision she made. Did she make the right decision to take out that quote?
Anyway, so I just thought, on the one hand, it's interesting again that even with a little bit more context there, Kaepernick was dissed by this superhero to some. And then I also think it's interesting again to note how commercial media, not that we don't know this, but how commercial media and all media are engaged in some form of bias. And I don't know if censorship is too harsh a word, but is engaged in some sort of framing and projection or positioning of a story. And in this case, it was potentially to make RBG look both good and a little bit bad in terms of taking away the context to her comment about Kaepernick. But I also thought it was just another reminder of how what Kaepernick continues to be punished for was an impressive move for him to make and platform to stand on. And that, again, even the liberal ruling elite don't like it, even as they're supposed to be the lesser of evil. So that was just one I thought I would start us off with this morning. And there it is.
I mean, it's particularly, for things like we do in some other places, we're obviously saying we're coming with a particular bent. We are coming with saying certain things in service to certain ideas that we believe in, because we think what you get from mainstream media cuts out those ideas, lies about those ideas, distorts a picture of the world. One of the problems with mainstream media, I think, is that in these pundits or so-called journalists, is that they want to present to you a worldview that they claim they're objective in, and then they're not they're not, calling any shots or anything like that. They're just giving it to you straight, whatever. And so again and again, it just shows, like you're saying, like, that it's you can't believe when folks are telling you that they have some objectivity, because they're doing their version of trying to make sure that you continue to buy in to some overt goodness about the country, that you have these heroes who, when you look deeply into them, particularly around their racial attitudes, aren't heroes at all, the Black folks, because they don't even understand a Black struggle beyond something that's as simple as we need to shut up and integrate and be happy, for what we have. And that's basically as far as they're willing to go. They're willing to talk about there's some racism in the world, but they don't want you to challenge it in any way which they feel is being disrespectful to them and their country.
No, her
racism.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
So there's the racism in RBG's comments, but then there's also the cleanup racism that Katie Couric did, right? I mean, RBG at that point in her life, long-serving Supreme Court justice, very old woman, she said what the fuck she said, right? Like, I don't think RBG would have felt any kind of way had those comments been published or broadcast in their entirety. It was someone else. It was an underling of RBG who was trying to run cleanup or run interference. And Katie Couric acquiesced. Why did she do that? Because, I think RBG in certain, especially in liberal white women's, minds, looms very large. But I think that Katie Couric was trying to protect RBG's legacy and RBG's reputation, when I don't think that's what RBG herself was even asking for. So this is what we see a lot of times in the media, where comments and context, and as you said, Jared, the way things are framed are done from a positioning of trying to continue to lionize certain individuals in the greater context and, I guess, collective thoughts or opinions of Americans. I don't know. I think Katie Couric is out here definitely trying to sell some books, by the way, because how many excerpts of salacious or semi-salacious things have I already heard about this Katie Couric book? And I think this is just the latest iteration of that. But yeah,
I haven't heard a thing. Is she talking about Matt Lauer? My bad. Sorry. Is she talking about Matt Lauer in there?
She mentioned some things about Matt Lauer. The things she said about Matt Lauer weren't, at least what I've heard anyway. I have no intention of reading Katie Couric's book, by the way, but one of the things that was mentioned and that was broadcast was Ashley Banfield. Like, Katie Couric was concerned that Ashley Banfield was coming up behind her, and she mentioned Ashley Banfield's father, who must be a muckety muck. I haven't done my Googles enough to figure out who in the hell Ashley Banfield's daddy is. But Ashley Banfield felt some kind of way that Katie Couric had even mentioned her father in the context of, being concerned that Ashley could one day replace her in her anchor position. So I don't know, just goofy white shit.
Speaking of shows, I've been watching the morning show, the new series on one of these streaming services that is clearly a play on some of what you're just here talking about. So Steve Carell's character is definitely based on, at least partially, Matt Lauer, including the locking door on The Office and all that, and all that kind of stuff. And Jennifer Aniston is maybe a Katie Couric-ish type, or maybe some other composite of other women in the industry. But but one book that we should highlight related to that story, I have not read it, but we should acknowledge that Kaepernick does have this book out, edited by him, Abolition for the People, the Movement for a Future Without Policing in Prisons. I know at least one. I think Dan Berger was one of the only contributors that I know off the top that I'm aware of his work. So anyway, and if folks have read it, I have not read it yet. I'd be interested in hearing their thoughts, and please reach out to us here at Black Power Media and let us know what you think. Anyway, just
quickly on that, like I haven't read the book yet, but I'm getting I think there should be starting to be like some more pushback around how people are using the idea around abolition, because people keep now it's the new buzzword. It's been around for a few years. But I think there's a certain context that's being taken out of abolition in terms of folks talking about how we want to abolish the police and the prisons. And my counter narrative or my pushback is, you can't abolish the very tools that the state uses to oppress without talking about abolishing the state itself that uses those tools. Because why would the state allow you to abolish the very tools that it uses to oppress if it's an oppressive state? And so there's just this disconnect to me around thinking you're going to take away different aspects of the state when it's the state itself, right, that is the oppressor, right? It's the state that directs the police through its elected officials, so forth and so on. And so thinking that you're going to reform the police out of existence somehow, that you're going to take away the domestic army of the very state that's the oppressor, means that it's not a very well thought out, that's to say ideological. You know, I get it from an organizing perspective of like, we need to push certain issues forward or challenge certain institutions within the state, of course. But I think sometimes it gets pushed so far that it starts to act like you're going to reform the police or you're going to take away prisons, and somehow the very state that is the oppressive state is going to somehow no longer be oppressive, or it's not going to find some other tools, or it's not going to take what you say and then just change around what it does and continue doing what it does that's it's already proven itself to do. So I think there's like a battle to be had within movement circles, right, around using the term, and I don't necessarily consider myself an abolitionist, so I just haven't really used the term a lot. Like, what does that term mean? And then how is it necessarily being mainstreamed, again, amongst liberal left activist types to mean something, but it takes a certain context out of it when it's presented.
Hey, please, everybody, I fully agree with that. And please, everybody, go back and watch last week's interview that Brother Kaba and I did with Dylan Rodriguez around this very issue in the video, abolition versus what he called white magic. And he said, he described in sort of jokingly what you're talking about, Kamal, as white magic. Like, we come in talking about abolition and we're in a war and we need to have a revolution, and then some white magic is sprinkled. And then, you know, and then folks, all of a sudden abolition and all of this gets rebranded and defanged and connected to all kinds of, and the conversation was in the context of the new critical resistance handbook on abolition, on teaching and learning about abolition, in which Rodriguez and Joy James, shout out to her as well, are contributors. So anyway, I think you're right on point. Kim, are you all set over there? Do you want to jump to one of your stories?
I do, but I don't have any visuals. I want to report
we might be able to help out. Go ahead.
Story from a tweet. Let me pull it up. So, as we all know, that the negotiations for the Build Back Better program, the plan, Joe Biden's big infrastructure investment that was originally trotted out to be, I think the cost was $3.5 trillion over 10 years, which we all can do simple math. Basically, that doesn't break down to shit, especially relative to what the Pentagon and military annual budgets are. But CNN's Manu Raju reported last night, I'm going to read this verbatim from his Twitter feed. It says, Biden told House progressives that tuition-free community college is out of the package per multiple sources. Child tax credit won't go as far as some would like, likely a 1-year extension. Home health care, likely less than $250 billion. Dems had wanted $400 billion. Climate change is still a debate. Raju goes on to report that they're looking at, quote, community college scholarships. Also, Medicare expansion is still on the table, as is universal pre-K and affordable, the ACA funding, the affordable healthcare funding. I'm assuming that's what that means. Dems had discussed with Biden $300 billion for climate change measures, but it's not clear how that shakes out. The price tag around $2 trillion. So the price tag that they've already come down from, they were at $3.5 trillion, which was already lame and short and not enough to begin with. So now this negotiation is already down to $2 trillion. And Biden told progressive lawmakers that negotiators are weighing a reduction of the duration of the paid leave benefit in the economic and climate package to 4 weeks, down from a proposed 12 weeks, according to 3 sources that told CNN. So Joe Biden's Build Back Better infrastructure plan is falling apart pretty much as expected, for the simple fact that the Democrats are not sufficiently able to whip their caucus. And tragically, they're trying to whip their caucus in the wrong direction. Biden I'm going to assume Pelosi and them are trying to sway the House progressives, the more progressive members of the House, that no, we can cut these things. Like we don't need as much childcare, or we community college, people can keep paying for community college. What's the big deal? So a lot of the progressive things that Joe Biden ran on, that he pledged to do while he was president, are already being whittled away. Less than a year of him already being in office, and the blame is going to be shifted to the two alleged rogue Democrat senators who won't agree on shit, right? But I don't hear any talk from the DNC about what to do about Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. How come they won't primary them niggas? Why won't they get them niggas out the paint? But because clearly the Democrats just want to lose. So there is that.
Every time I read the New York Times every day. It's like another story about how that whatever their proposal is getting whittled and whittled and whittled and whittled away. And so the strategy becomes is like, we need to just pass something.
Right?
We need to pass something. If you don't allow us to pass something, then we're going to lose the midterm. So it doesn't matter if it's and this is just the game of politics, right? It doesn't matter if it's effective. Doesn't matter if it has the impact that they claim it was going to have at the beginning. It's down to pass something so we can win these seats again, and then claim we're going to continue to do something that we're never going to do in the first place. And that kind of thing. So that's the continued game that gets being put on us. And I agree, it's not like the progressives or the whatever is considered sort of the left-leaning caucus is saying, no, fuck it, then let's not pass anything. Because then that's get our house in order. Like you said, let's primary these other folks. Let's tell the truth about what's happening in Congress and say A, B, C, D, and this is why we can't get it passed. And if we only get this one out, or we need to get these ones out, because they're the ones who are really holding back the agenda, including Pelosi, right, including Chuck Schumer. Mm-hmm. But that's not how the game is run. It's like it's a top-down caucus, and they're saying, we're going to pass something, because that's how we're going to win the midterms and get millions of more dollars in our coffers and stuff. So,
but again, I think we need to remind everybody that for 20 years, for just one war, they found $300 million every single day.
A day.
So, I think it's remarkable across party lines how when it comes to school and healthcare and et cetera, it's just such a struggle and requires such a debate. Mm-hmm. But we'll be asked and invited, and the money, if it hasn't already, will start rolling out again through the Democratic nonprofit funding structures like Act Blue and all of them. And the billions will start rolling out, and people will start finding inducements to tell us we got to support.
Because it's going to be the most important election ever.
Right.
And remember, this was also touted. This crumbling stimulus was touted as the biggest. What was it? The biggest investment since
in a generation.
Roosevelt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Many generations. Yes.
So this was the big thing. This was why we voted for him, and it's going to be nothing. And yet, as we'll continue to see, the drone strikes and the wars and the military, dispersal or whatever will continue to happen in other parts of the world to make up for what they're losing in Afghanistan. I mean, it's crazy.
Well, what kind of strategy is this for the Democrats? And I mean, I would implore there's probably no strategy. I mean, you ran on all these progressive things. You begged Black people to come out and vote. You lied and said that they was going to get $2,000 again in stimulus again. And I'm not trying to be petty, okay? But Joe Biden still owes me $600, and I look at Joe Biden as somebody who owes me $600 fucking dollars. So we are not cool. I don't want to hear nothing else you got to say until you run me my money, right? And I know that's just one relatively small aspect, but not really that small, in my opinion, of what the problems that the Democrats are going to face in this midterms. And I think that the Democrats are going to get rinsed next year. Rinsed. The Republicans are probably going to reclaim the House. Chances are they might reclaim the Senate. I'm not too familiar as to what Senate seats are actually open or what are the close Senate races. So I need to, to sort of do my Googles on that aspect. But the Democrats are not inspiring confidence, nor are they inspiring enthusiasm among their base. And this, we are in that cycle where the red wave, the Republican, the conservatives are very fired up about mask mandates, about vaccine mandates, and they look at Biden as the reason for all of this, bullshit. That they look at as bullshit. The impediments to their freedom lay with the Biden administration. So Republicans are going to have a lot of momentum next year going into the midterms, and I think the Democrats are about to lose power, as they typically do whenever they get power. They are so good at not holding on to power for very long because they fuck it up. They end up pissing off their base or people who could be convinced to be part of their base, and they want to. They insist on trying to claw back the middle, the moderate voters, the Trump, the Obama to Trump back to Biden voters, or whoever the fuck. And instead of trying to grow the left, they never reach left. They always want to claw in for the middle, and that's going to end up costing them.
Yeah. In fact, what they do is destroy the left, right? Their goal, along with Republicans, is destroy any real left, right? And to replace it with the sort of liberal model of performative politics. And that gets called the left, and that's as far left as you're allowed to go. And anything other than that, you're a hater or you're ultra, and you're targeted to be destroyed. To be honest,
you're a purist. You're a purist.
You're a purist. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I mean, the only thing that I would slightly disagree with you on, Kim, in what you said is that I don't think that they did run on anything. I think that was the whole point. All they ran on to get Biden in was that he wasn't Trump.
That's right.
And it was all of that money that was sprinkled out to the punditry that encouraged them to create, for many of us, the idea that something progressive was actually attached. But all he was saying was, I'm not this guy. I'm not him. And, and that was it. And so that's how they're going to get away. And I think we're not only I agree with you that the Democrats, if I may borrow your term, are also going to get rinsed. But I think we're not done with Trump. I think he's going to come back. I think he's coming back and going to, I actually think he's going to win. I think we're going to get another 4 years of him.
I probably agree with that. Yeah, I think that's possible. If he does run, it's him or the really right-wing one who actually has politics but who's crazy out of his goddamn mind.
Yeah, you had to be more specific. Come on.
I was gonna say that could be no, but I think I know who you're talking about because it was the one he beat last time, right?
No, not even him. No, the one who was in his administration. I'm blanking on his name.
Oh, then I might.
He was in admin. I don't know if he was also at one point the head of the CIA. Became maybe head of not defense. His name is escaping me, but he's solid right wing. He's also ultra Christian. His name is going to pop to me, but he's been not again. He's not. He hasn't. He was in people. I like that people are throwing up names for me. I appreciate that.
So it's not Ted Cruz, right?
Oh, no, it's not Cruz. Okay. He was actually in Trump's Mike,
and it's not Mike Pompeo.
It's Mike Pompeo.
Pompeo, really?
Pompeo, I think, Pompeo is going to run.
Thinking. Interesting.
Pompeo is if Trump does not run, or for whatever reason, or maybe even if he does, Pompeo is itching to run. And unlike, there's always like the most dangerous. Pompeo is seriously right wing, seriously warmongering, and again, it's one of those things where we always have that, but he's so overtly sort of white supremacist that it puts things at a certain precedence faster than we would have gotten there otherwise. And so I think I think again, as I've expressed on the show before, I don't think Biden's going to really run for a second term. I just think he's too decrepit, and I think it's going to be Kamala. But I think the Republicans are going to clean her clock, right? Because again, she doesn't inspire Black folks. So she's not going to bring out a base. She's moderate like the rest of them. And that was the other thing too. Remember, they pushed us during the Democratic primary for those who are like paying attention to it and thinking that is the only alternative, of course, was to be like, don't vote for anybody left of Biden. Biden is perfectly positioned as the moderate to get everything you need through to make everything better for us, right? That was other than being the anti-Trump, that was their other calling card.
Yeah.
He's experienced, he's been in Congress, he's perfectly positioned to play the role that is needed, right, to get all of these different programs off the ground, particularly domestic programs off the ground, to alleviate sort of the pain and suffering happening under COVID. That he's the only one that can really push this through because of his decades of experience and knowledge and his ability to make
but his
Congress
decades of experience are Biden capitulating to Senate Republicans on conservative shit.
They just left that part out though, Kim. That
Right.
wasn't, they just stopped the sentence before that. They stopped it at he's, you know,
he knows how to reach across the aisle because he knows how to sacrifice and compromise important policies and values that Democratic voters wanted in these certain in whatever bill that Joe Biden was selling us out with Republicans about. Like, those are not good selling points to me.
No.
I mean,
no. But anyway, that well.
Joe Biden works well with Klansmen. Oh, that's great. Like
in the United States, that's an endorsement.
Right.
In U.S. politics, it's like, wow, that means he can get something done. Yeah,
he can work with the Klansmen. Oh my God,
he understands the country well.
Well, admittedly, just quickly before we get to the ear doctor, admittedly, this has become a pet peeve of mine, but I thought it was funny that that even the propaganda base or the one of the propaganda outlets used to bring us Biden, while also being used to tell us that this is why we got Trump, is also now being told to us as being not trustworthy for even cryptocurrency. So the hustle, so Facebook is being said by so one set of hustlers, let me read it this way. One set of hustlers, the US Senate, is telling another set of hustlers, that is Zuckerberg and his crew, that they can't engage, that they're not trustworthy enough to engage yet another set of hustlers in cryptocurrency by telling Facebook, we don't trust you enough to support you in your plans to establish your own cryptocurrency. So on the one hand, I want to remind all those who keep promoting crypto as the Black revolutionary outlet that even Facebook, and as I've been trying to tell folks, all the biggest banks, JP Morgan, etc., are all jumping on crypto. So if they're involved, I mean, you know, it's largely a wrap for everybody else. But Facebook and everybody are trying to get involved, and I just thought it was funny that the Senate is saying, you know, you all are such a mess that with all your other stuff, with this whistleblower that I think is fake, I agree with the Gray Zone and them on that. But you know, you're not engaged in enough counterinsurgency and enough counterterrorism and enough surveillance of our own citizens, so-called. So we don't trust you to then establish your own currency and start finding another way to Ponzi scheme people out of what little pennies we're all left with. So I just thought that was kind of funny and something I want to keep looking at. But anyway, the hustlers are watching the hustlers avoid and helping them avoid the other hustlers.
It's all about the data mining and the surveillance. That's what the surveillance world or the internet world, you know, it's all combined to match up. It's all about the data mining and the surveillance. And with the data mining, they're going to make their profits and they're going to extract those pennies from you. And the surveillance is to make sure you can't do nothing about it.
And the argument really, and the argument is really ever only about which source of power gets to actually exploit that resource for propagandizing and surveilling. So when it seems like they're trying to curtail it or manage it or help us, what they're really doing is saying, no, we want full access. So don't let the Russians propagandize through Facebook because we have to do it. So we don't we built
our model of doing it is better than their model. Our model is mostly built on corporations getting access to this information, taking it and using it for whatever their purposes is. And then we do the background surveillance. Their model is overt surveillance. Like, the Russian and Chinese model is the overt surveillance where all your data is basically linked to the state, right? And so obviously this is a little bit outside what I think about some of their socialist economic platforms, but they definitely both have surveillance states. China, in order to pay to get on the subway and in stores, you have this the face thing. You got to put the face. You got to put your face on it. And that's all controlled by the state. They have their own credit. The state has its version of a credit rating, which allows you to get certain things and not to get certain things.
Yikes.
Right here, it's privatized, and it's the corporations that battle amongst themselves, right? And so there is competition in the so-called free market system of the United States. It's a competition between elites, like Jared is saying, to figure out who gets to do the exploitation, right? But it's all about that surveillance. It's all about having data on everybody. It's all about the data mining and the extraction of profits.
Absolutely. So I'm still waiting. By the way, this dude, I talked about it on my show the other day. This dude, Reggie Middleton, I don't know if you all know of him, but he's all into crypto and Bitcoin, a brother who is apparently a big wig and constantly interviewed on C-SPAN or whatever, or not, not C-SPAN, but these financial TV programs. He emailed me and said he wants to debate over my position on crypto. So I was like, all right, yeah, anytime, whenever. And I haven't heard from him in a couple of days now. I don't know what happened. I was like, Reggie, don't call me out and disappear now. Like,
maybe he read your book. Maybe he read your book and changed his mind.
I think that's what happened. He started doing some research. I was like, oh, these talking points don't work. Because the same talking points he takes to other people who are either not as informed or, again, just competing with him for access won't work when someone is totally saying, no, it's not about your process. It's the whole thing, right? It's not like your data, your thing is better. Your little crypto coin is better than someone else's crypto coin because yours has a little black star on it compared to somebody else's. It's the whole system of the crypto coin. Someone they can't stand up to that challenge.
Well, apparently he's like an award-winning stock market analyst. So like he apparently beats the sharks at the stock market. I don't know, man. That's what that's what's on his YouTube reel. With these TV programs praising him. And I'm just like, well, all right. I mean, but you're saying investment is a pathway to collective freedom. I definitely don't agree. So let's debate.
Yeah, I was going to say something about his credentials, but I don't know dude specifically. But just because he is a credentialed person on financial television networks does not mean that nigga's on the up and up, because there's a lot of crooks that get put on television all the time. So, I know. Just because CNBC says he's an expert at X, don't hold a lot of water over here.
And I know a lot of credentials that say like award winning. Then you go research what that award was. You're like, oh, you gave something to yourself, B? Come on
now. Yeah, I count the award I got from Kamal Franklin last year, as I'm an award winning journalist and professor, because Kamal said, here, JB, congratulations.
Exactly.
Well, speaking of award-winning, talented superstars, undeniable in their credentials, we got the ear doctor coming back with us.
Hey, fix your face, Kamal. I don't like that.
Right here on the remix. What's
up?
Hey, I felt left out, so I had to go put my shirt on. Now we look like a bad version of Boys to Men, grown ass men to elders.
Welcome to JC Penney. Can I help you? What are you looking for today? Thank you, Ricky Ryan. That was a Ricky Ryan joke. Ricky Ryan got that joke.
Hey, y'all know I'm a connected guy, so I got connects. I got the movie theater rented out. I'm gonna tell y'all about some things y'all might want to check out. So let's get to it.
Remix.
Right on. The remix.
Yeah. What's good, everybody? Welcome to the Remix Morning Show. I go by the name of the Ear Doctor. And right now, I was just sitting here in the movie theater chilling, and I was thinking about some good flicks I was put on or I was watching. So let me start with one of them that you might want to check out. We got a flick called The One and Only Dick Gregory. This is on Showtime. Let me give you a little piece of that right there where you can see a little bit of the trailer joint and check out what he's talking about. Check this out.
When they say this show features living color, you better believe it.
Dick Gregory was one of the greatest political comedians to ever live.
In about 6 more months, they're going to be forced to hire Negro bus drivers in Mississippi, so we're growing steering wheels so they can drive from the back of the bus.
His stage presence was so smooth.
Dick Gregory changed the entire landscape of stand-up comedy.
Football is a fair sport for my people. Only sport in the world a Negro can chase a white man and 40,000 people stand up and cheer.
Damn, he's talking to these white people like that.
He just spoke his truth. What's overlooked is how unafraid he was.
Are you out to give people a good laugh? Are you out to make a very definite point? I happen to believe that you can't laugh social problems out of existence.
Dick knew how to take a heated issue, bring humor, and move forward. It encouraged people.
That's right. That's just a little bit we want to give y'all real quick. That is once again Dick Gregory. Now let's go to another flick that I found very good. This is John Henry Clark's documentary, The Great and Mighty Walk. In case you don't know anything about that, it is a documentary on our history, and it is narrated by no other than the one and only Wesley Snipes. Check this out.
How do you describe a legend? An African-American hero, an historian, an activist who for half a century has charted a singular course dedicated to the intellectual and spiritual liberation of a people. Though his eyes are now darkened by glaucoma, he continues to enlighten the lives of thousands of men and women through the pages of his many books and in university classrooms across the country. How do you describe a legend? You can't, really. But you can meet the men and women who influenced him. You can learn from him the hidden history of the African people. Learn from him a different way of making sense of this complex and often very confusing world. And you can let Dr. John Henry Clark tell his own extraordinary story in his own soulful style.
That's right. That was a very, very dope one right there. Great for a history lesson for kids and adults. And my last one I want to get to was a pretty funny one called Cosmic Slop. Cosmic Slop was a movie about aliens coming to the earth and wanting to get people, black people, that's the darker than the color of a paper bag. That's right. Darker than the color of a paper bag. Check this out.
From the creators of Boomerang and House Party comes a film from beyond the limits of imagination. There are many mysteries we don't understand. Within the confines of the twisted caverns of the mind, there lies a fertile pit of alternate reality known as the Cosmic Slop.
Oh, somebody bring me some milk, because he took a big Oreo.
Cosmic Slop. Some hip, funky, and supernatural tales of life in the inner city. We are space traders bearing exquisite gifts. I'm sure this will all blow over in a couple of days. In trade for solving all your most pressing domestic catastrophes, we are asking for every person in your country that you would classify as black.
Do you really think the aliens will treat them worse than we have?
Call up MCI, ask them to fire up 2 yes and no 900.
That was like, yo, we are getting these Africans up out of here. Let's get it started. So those are some dope shows y'all can go check out. Once again, Cosmic Slop that had George Clinton in it. That had Robert Guillotine, if I say his name. I probably didn't say it right. But then you had John Henry Clark's Great and Mighty Walk, and then you got Dick Gregory. So those are 3 great movies, y'all. Documentaries that you can go check out. This is the Ed Doctor, this is Black Power Media, and the Remix Morning Show. Let's get back to it with our hosts. All right. Yeah.
Dear Doctor, Cosmic Slop, that's not a new movie, right? That's
Oh no. That's been out since the 90s.
And were you trying to say Robert Guillaume?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Why'd you beat me to it? First, you got first, Kim. You got to set up.
Thank you, Kim. Like, you did it so much better than him.
First, you got to go like, did you say guillotine?
Yeah, I did.
That's how you guys say. Then you set it up, and then you give him a little correction. But first,
he be cutting it. He be cutting them up.
You got to help him out a little bit with like a guillotine.
Yo, but even at John Henry Clark, man, I mean, that's a real live history lesson. If you sit down and watch that, and I was very, very, very much love that. That's one of my
I had
favorite.
The pleasure of at Hunter College, John Henry Clark spoke, and he was an elder at the time. He had lost his vision, but the panache was still there. I mean, my man came up and it was one of those things, everybody's on the edge of their seat. And listening to his history, him tell stories, him break down sort of, obviously racial violence against Black folks. And again, what our role is in trying to subvert and fight back against oppression. So it was like, it felt like one of those times you're sitting with a master teacher and they're giving you just a history that you're not going to get any place else. And he obviously he was an elder at the time. And he probably passed away a few years after that, but he great intellectual, someone who still does not get the credit he deserves, of course, because he was not a mainstream intellectual. He was purely about the Black liberation politics of our time and our people. So you're right. Like there's no one who I've read more than John Henry Clark who I've really appreciated. So.
And Dick Gregory. I mean, we might not like Kevin Hart, but I'm glad he executive produced this movie right here, because I definitely wanted to know more about Dick Gregory. And coming up in them times, like you said, sitting in front of a white audience, telling these jokes about race, like really breaking that barrier, that's something right there.
And I mean, I saw the one and only Dick Gregory. It's actually pretty well done. Kevin Hart and Lena Waithe, I think, executive produced it.
Yeah.
I thought it was really, really well done. The only complaint I had was when Chris Rock said, and the person who's out here in comedy today who's closest to Dick has got to be Dave Chappelle. And I'm like, why? Because they both smoke cigarettes on stage. Like, I mean, that's about where the comparisons begin and end for me. But that was really my lone complaint about the Dick.
But I'm saying, as in talking politics in a certain way where certain people get it, I can see that comparison.
I guess.
Dick Gregory, very good. Yeah, Dick Gregory evolved from a regular stand-up who almost somewhat to like a Richard Pryor. Richard went in another direction. Still had politics and this shit, but Dick, developed from someone who's just like a run-of-the-mill stand-up comedian to someone who started introducing real politics. A groundbreaking book called Nigga, where he, boomed, talked about politics. He was civil rightsy for the most part in terms of his ideological bent. But you're right, like during that time to challenge on stage, to use comedy as a way to get to real issues, and then even to go further because he was part of the movement, right? He wasn't just somebody who performed, and he wasn't somebody who just donated money. Dick Gregory was at marches, he was in planning meetings, he was building his own organizational apparatuses.
Great friends with Medgar Evers and Dr. King.
Yeah.
And all of them, Malcolm X, all of them. Yeah.
And then later in life, of course, he, started talking a lot about health and nutrition issues, and that became a big part of it, the platform of his that he used to talk about the importance of eating great, access to good foods, what we put in our stomach, corporate greed that leads us to eat things that aren't really food. But again, they make a profit off of it. So I agree. Like Dick Gregory really, holds a sort of seminal place in terms of someone who fought and for like rights and power and all that kind of stuff. So
the only other political comedian I could think of is George Carlin when it comes to having comedy and politics.
Carlin was a beast. Yeah. Well, Lenny Bruce before, like, people who set the stage. Lenny Bruce also, white comedian, the politics, and also again the narrative that comedy had to be in some ways dull or just sort of like in a small box and talk about, me and my wife or me and my family, people like Lenny Bruce, George Carlin, Dick Gregory, Richard Pryor, they started exploring other avenues of comedy to deal with, like, not only politics, but drugs and cursing and system change and all that kind of stuff that opened up, I think, opened up comedy to a way which, again, brother, I don't even know if I disagree a lot with him, but comedians have tried to further that. Now, whether or not they've done a great job of doing it is always up for debate and discussion, because that's part of what comedy is. But you got those cats who open those doors to talk about things that didn't necessarily get talked about before, and some of them suffered real consequences. Lenny Bruce suffered real world consequences for it. Dick Gregory suffered real world consequences for it. George Carlin suffered some real world consequences for it. Obviously, Richard Pryor suffered real world consequences for putting the ideas, again, that weren't these moderate, safe ideas around let's laugh about, what my wife made for dinner, because most of them were dudes at the time, right, who were allowed to break through, to let's talk about the world around us. Let's talk about things that are going on. So yeah.
Well, before I get out of here, I just want to set y'all up and let y'all know we have a movie review show coming here on Black Power Media. Jared, let them know a little bit about that, and I'm out. I'll catch y'all next break.
Sure. I unfortunately I missed a lot of that, but the show is within our gates. You can see Brother Mtume Gant and Adam. Well, you can see Brother Mtume with me on a couple of I Mix What I Likes. We've had him on, and his partner Adam Johnson will be joining shortly. And they do really fascinating work on it's not just movie reviews, and I've been corrected on that. Definitely don't forget Paul Mooney. But they take an in-depth look, and Gant is a professor of film studies in New York. Johnson is something similar. I can't remember exactly what he does, but they do a fascinating show. So I look forward to them joining us. I did want to say I saw a little bit of a reference to John Henrik Clarke, and again I missed most of that, unfortunately. But shout out to Dr. Clarke and to St. Clair Drake, who did the documentary A Great and Mighty Walk. St. Clair Born, rather, and of course, Wesley Snipes for funding and narrating that documentary, and probably being punished in part for that as well. But anyway, so yeah, apologies for my technical difficulties, and at least they didn't stop the show. So there we go. I don't know where we were, but and I'm just jumping back in. So
no, we were just wrapping up talking about some of the stuff that the Ear Doctor was presenting around comedy and some of the films that he was showing. Whether we did, like, it's been a long time since I read it. Like, he talked the film that he showed a preview for that was Ode, which was about aliens coming down to Earth and wanting to take the black folks away, whatever like that. And isn't that based on the Cosmic Slop? Is that not based on the Derek Bell thing, or is the Derek Bell wrote a famous essay that was around what would happen if aliens came, I believe, or hopefully somebody in the chat, this time I will look at the chat and let them correct me, that what would happen if something similar happened to, like, aliens wanted to take black folks and stuff like that, and how would those in power, basically white folks, respond to that? And maybe similar. I haven't seen the film. I assume that they just want to take us and run. There was one of the essays in Faces at the Bottom of the Well, but I just can't remember which essay it was.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
the only thing I know about Cosmic Slop is that it was a Parliament Funkadelic album.
Yes,
I didn't even
that I
realize that there
remember.
was a movie that accompanied it. So I'm very much interested in the movie because I've always been a big fan of Robert Guillaume also. So, or Robert Guillotine as some.
Yeah,
like
that's what I did hear that part. Right. Yeah. Guillaume, not guillotine. Right. That's funny.
That's his street name. That was his gang name. Robert
name.
Guillotine. That was his G name out there in
cut
the
your
streets.
neck off, son. I'm not Benson. I will cut your neck off.
There was one other story, if we have a minute, that it's not really a story, but something I just wanted to share. And on Friday, Dr. Mjiba Freyawat will be joining me and Brother Kaba for the I Mix What I Like Friday edition of Remix Morning Show, as I like to call it. But on imixwhatilike.org, I wrote a short review of this new film by Dr. Mjiba Freyawat called Umoja, Africa Must Unite Now. And she'll be on with me and Brother Kaba Friday to talk about it. But there were just a couple of quick points that I wanted to mention. It's a short film about the history and politics and contemporary value of Pan-Africanism. And there were just a couple points I wanted to highlight for us to consider this morning. And we'll get into it more with Dr. Freyawat on Friday. And by the way, Dr. Abdul Al-Kalimat will be joining us on Friday as well to talk about his brand new book on the history of Black studies, which I look forward to as well. But anyway, Umoja is produced, the film that is produced by, there are three quick points I want to make about the film for our discussion. Umoja, the film, is produced by a true adherent to Pan-Africanism and one very much engaged in the diaspora. And this is sort of a pet peeve of mine over some years now. I think not just mine, but a lot of the people who write and talk about radical figures and movements in our history don't actually agree with those politics or those movements. And this documentary or short film about Pan-Africanism stands in contradiction to that tendency, where Dr. Freyawat is very much a Pan-Africanist and Pan-African and engaged in the diaspora. And the other 2 points, very quickly, that not only does she focus on the role of women in that history, and in the contemporary struggle today, because she talks to a lot of people engaged in the movement today. But I also note that she has as central, not just including them, but as central, the role of continental Africans in not only the history of Pan-Africanism, but in the contemporary promotion and defense of it as a tactic and an ideology that we need to adopt and embrace today. So I encourage people to go to imixwhatilike.org, read the short review, link to the film itself, which I believe is still available to be seen through the link in that piece there, and then support the film. And then, we'll be, on to talk more about it Friday morning. But I just thought that was really important, that because a lot of times we hear that Pan-Africanism is largely credited as evolving outside of the continent. I know Kwame Ture and others have a different approach that challenges that, but it was good to see a lot of continental Africans and young continental Africans throughout Africa in 2021 saying we need Pan-Africanism if we're going to make it out of this. So anyway, I just wanted to raise that up and shout out Dr. Freyawat in that work.
I think it's still an interesting dialogue because, again, those voices are suppressed on the continent because there's so many African leaders these days who are not at all about Pan-Africanism, except as in imitating European structures of what unity should look like. And that unity usually involves sort of a capitalist top-down unity, which is supported by Western countries in some ways, but of course discouraged in others, because any unity they see as a threat, even sometimes if it's a capitalist unity against a capitalist unity, because I think that cuts out their cut. So there's always that, back and forth in terms of like what's happening on the ground, which we, again, don't get to hear a lot about in terms of what's happening on the ground. So it would be great to get some more insight. And shout out to folks like Friends of the Congo, who do a lot of great work on the ground with young people and organization and building grassroots structures to help support folks who are anti-capitalists on the ground. So yeah.
All right, right on. And very quickly, because I know Ear Doctors is set to come back in just a minute, but there was one other story, and I'm not trying to start any more beef and drama on our platform. But I don't understand what I'm reading, but I thought the premise of the claim of this story that was sent to me by one of my doctor friends is very interesting. It's in the conversation.com website. Where I know my brother, Dr. Kwesi Conadu, has been publishing more and more lately. But the argument here is that there is less of a contradiction between the natural health community and the vaccination community. Now, again, I don't promise to or pretend to understand the argument or the details. This is written by someone, a doctor in the medical community, or professor of public health at Southern Cross University, rather, who acknowledges having received funding from the National Health and Medical Research Council for part of this work. But basically, the argument is that, simply put, the argument is that there is no natural health replacement for vaccinations, but that there's less of a contradiction between the natural health community going back decades and the vaccine development community. So what I was hoping, again, not being an expert in anything that is said here, and not pretending that I can understand what is being written, but just to say that I liked the idea and wanted to at least share it with my own frame, that for purposes of our conversations around this, it might be helpful to be aware that there has been a long-standing communicative relationship between the natural health community and the vaccine development community, that we don't have to be at this level of hostility that I see playing out in areas in our community, in our spaces, even as we all try to figure out how the hell we're going to make it through this particular pandemic. So I just thought I would throw that out there, encourage people to check out theconversation.com and that story, and see if it helps.
Yeah, I mean,
we bring unity here to RemiX.
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to obviously encourage people to get vaccinated or do whatever the fuck they want to do. I don't know what to tell people to do these days. I mean, but basically, I totally can see how natural health practitioners could be in harmony with some vaccines, especially since basically, I mean, I would assume the natural health position is, once you get exposed to said virus or said disease, if your body affects a good immune response, you can, develop antibodies or etc. But I think that's premised on whether or not you survive the initial exposure to the virus and to the disease. Like if you survive it, yes, then your immune system did its thug thing out here, and I guess you can go on as normal. But not everybody's immune system is built the same, and I very much subscribe to garlic and ginger and parsley and all the good, stuff that has antioxidants and all kinds of beneficial things for your body. But at the same time, there's shit out here that will jump on you and kill you regardless of how healthy you are. So I don't know, when it comes to unknown substances, or even known things that we know that have killed people out here over the years or have harmed them, like polio, etc. Okay. I'm more afraid of polio than I am the polio vaccine, and that goes the same for COVID. I'm way more afraid of COVID than I am of the COVID vaccine.
Well, there was one quick paragraph I'll read from here that I thought was interesting and that I can somewhat follow. Is that it says, one thing people often overlook is the adaptive immune response caused by vaccination is natural. Vaccination prepares the body's immune system in the same way natural exposure to infection does. It just does it in a safer, controlled way and a much lower dose. So then he goes on to ask, so then why is there all of this tension between the vaccine and the natural health community? And I think that's where more of an investigation into my professional field of media and propaganda might be relevant here, because I think it has more to do with how these discussions are framed and proposed and conducted than it does with substance. than it does to substantive differences. That is. So I just thought that was interesting, and like I said, I hope it helps in some way. But yes, speaking of help that is on the way, the ear doctor is back once again.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I just want to say, I
Garvey
do
behind him.
Hey, that's the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
But I do agree with Kim, because in a way, people that have low immune systems, they do need to go ahead and possibly get the vax. For me, for instance, since 95, I've been, building my immune system up, eating right, doing this, that, and the third. So for me, I'm speaking out of a person that's prepared for, having to deal with stuff like this. So people who don't, go ahead and get that, because their body might not be ready for it. But what we're gonna do right now is we're gonna go ahead and spread some light on no other than Marcus Garvey, since we're talking that black nationalism. Let's get to it.
Let's go.
The remix.
A lot of buttons over here. A lot of buttons. So let's rock out like this. In case you didn't know, behind me is no other than Marcus Garvey, Marcus Mosiah Garvey Sr., who was born in 1887. August 17th, made his transition June the 10th, 1940. He was a Jamaican political activist, publisher, journalist, entrepreneur, and orator. He was first founded and was the president and general of the United Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League. So he did all that, and he also brought along the ideology of Garveyism. Said, let's go back to the motherland. So with that said, I'm gonna give a little something and let y'all hear a little bit of his words over this beat. Check this out.
Fellow citizens of Africa, I greet you in the name of the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League of the World. You may ask, what organization is that? It is for me to inform you that the Universal Negro Improvement Association is an organization that seeks to unite into one solid body the 400 million Negroes of the world, to link up the 15 million Negroes of the United States of America with the 20 million Negroes of the West Indies, the 40 million Negroes of South and Central America, with the 280 million Negroes of Africa, for the purpose of bettering our industrial, commercial, educational, social, and political conditions. As you are aware, the world in which we live today is divided into separate race groups and distinct nationalities. Each race and each nationality is endeavoring to work out its own destiny to the exclusion of other races and other nationalities. We hear the cry of England for the Englishman, of France for the Frenchman, of Germany for the German, of Ireland for the Irish, of Palestine for the Jew, of Japan for the Japanese, of China for the Chinese. We of the Universal Negro Improvement Association are raising the cry of Africa for the Africa.
That's right, African for the Africans. Big up to Marcus Garvey. Thank you for your works, especially here from Black Power Media. Let's give back to our people right here on the Remix Morning Show. Let's go. What you eating, Kim?
She's still chewing. She can't even answer the question.
I wasn't ready.
Breakfast morning snack.
It's a chicken tender. I made it. I fried chicken tenders last night.
Oh, you made the order online? I hear that.
No, sir. I cooked. I cook out here. I be cooking and stuff.
Hey, if we was to have a versus with Marcus Garvey, who would oppose his side of thinking?
Oh, obviously, well, we'd be Du Bois or
right?
Or even better yet, since they had Cyril Briggs would be, their beef was so legendary that we were talking about it a couple weeks ago. I thought they were both childish. When I went back and read they're both acting like children, calling each other names, snitching on each other to the feds. I mean, they were a mess. Like they were literally snitching on each other. Like, get him deported. Nah, get him deported. And talk bad about each other. He had Cyril Briggs bring his black mother to court to prove that he was black. They got on him so bad. Briggs brought his black mother to court. It was like, I'm black.
No, people don't know. Like back in the day, like folks hustle. I mean, it's not just a today issue. And again, whether or not people like how folks do it, but people, I mean, literally, like you said, having meetings, talking to the government about get rid of this Negro. He's bad. Such and such. Yeah, that was the style, and open letters.
That's right. People get mad at Umar and them today. If they had YouTube back in the day, Garvey would have been all up on his YouTube. Get my likes up, son, and get rid of these beige motherfuckers out of here.
We need to build these boats. Let's go.
Build these boats, get this business, and get these beige motherfuckers out of here.
To my Patreon page.
Right.
These boats were.
And Du Bois would have been up here like, get my talented 10 money Patreon up.
Yo, but let me ask you this: how would he even choose these talented 10? Like, where would their ideologies be compared to Garvey's ideology? And I'm gonna just say that and leave it. I'll let y'all discuss it later.
Right on. And what's up, Kalanji? We see you popping up in the building this morning.
Hey, I'm coming through hearing all this blasphemy about Garvey and Umar Johnson name being mentioned in the same goddamn breath. Something's going wrong on the RemiX morning show. What's happening? How y'all doing, man?
Wasn't he Marcus's grandfather? I thought he was Marcus's grandfather.
Say it again.
He was Frederick Douglass's.
Frederick Douglass's third cousin removed, second Abyssinian Baptist Church member.
Aunt. I think Harriet was his aunt. Harriet Tubman was his aunt.
Nah, I think Harry Belafonte's cousin's niece's nephew's sister was his aunt. You know what I'm saying? That's how he started raising all that money.
Robert Guillotine was his cousin.
Hey, man, I don't understand how come Sean King hasn't thought about that idea to bring out his black parent. You know what I mean? So everybody can verify or
can't bring out what you don't have. You know what I'm saying?
Oh. Well, I thought it was because I thought the dude.
His claim was his mama had an affair with a black man.
A real light-skinned black man.
Really, I had an affair with a black man, and she told him years later. I think that was it. But that's been the end of the story. Basically, that's the end of it. It's not like he's bringing them out. Ain't been no pictures together. I don't even think his parents have like backed him up. I haven't even heard a story about his mama coming on and saying, "Yes, I did sleep with a Negro, and that's in Sean is a product of that."
Yeah, that's dirty. He said that he threw his mother out there like that.
He was like, "Mama, look, white trash, mama, look, Trailer Park, mama, look what we got. We got the cash rolling in. Keep your mouth shut."
You saw you saw his new shirt, right? You could get his new black owned. Y'all didn't see that?
Yes, I did see that, and I was appalled. I'm like, Nick, is this nigga really selling people black t-shirts for $50? Plain black
but because
t-shirt?
they come from an all black farm in Tanzania, where the cotton is farmed on an all black farm in Tanzania, and you could get this all black t-shirt. Literally, it's just straight black t-shirt. There's no writing, nothing, no logo, nothing. A straight black
bills.
It doesn't say Hanes in the tag.
For
made in China.
$50. I saw it on his Instagram feed. I was like, this nigga is on one. Seriously. Like, dog, you have run so many grifts or been accused of having your hands in so many pots of money that was not intended for you. And now you have the audacity to be out here trying to sell people plain black t-shirts for $50.
I mean, what's worse, somebody's going to buy it. That's the thing. It's like,
yes.
Folks, there's going to be walking around with it. You know what I mean? With a fresh, crisp black, made in bought in Tanzania, made in Japan or China.
No, but it said, I saw on his Facebook page, there was actual arguments. People were saying, but no, don't complain about the price because you have to be willing to pay a little more for a Black-owned product. And if you look at the prices of other people's shirts and T-shirts, you're seeing it's not that much, it's not overpriced. I mean, there are people not only going to buy it, but who will defend it vigorously.
I mean, okay, so the concept of it, I can agree with and understand. It is the nigga selling, the vendor. It is the person whose name is behind these T-shirts. That's where I have questions surrounding the credibility of his claims of what the supply chain actually is. You know what I mean? Like Sean King telling me that this is made from Tanzanian cotton don't hold water with me because the nigga don't have no credibility. He's lying.
It's all black except for Sean. he's the white dot in the middle of it.
Right. All the more reason to be skeptical.
But you got to understand that, you know what I'm saying, the man is paying for the plane ticket from Tanzania in order for, so that's the upcharge right there. So y'all tripping, man. If you go get it yourself, it might be $5 or $2. You know what I'm saying? But it's the price of that airfare is serious. So shout out to Sean King for
he always keeps that hair low so he can continue to pass mulatto style. He always keeps that. You got to grow that hair out a little bit.
So yeah, I'm offended as a legit mulatto who cannot grow his hair out anymore. I'm offended at this fact. Man. So that, the proof that I would be able to offer, I cannot offer as easily anymore. And this dude is just out here making my life that much more difficult. Now you want to talk about, tragic mulatto experience. This is it. This is it for me right here. This dude is ruining. No, I'm just saying, but I do want to point out very quickly, I have to point out the paradox that is here, the contradiction that it's News One calling someone out for being a fake and a fraud. I gotta, like these black commercial capitalist outlets that these black bourgeois, sources, they need to be checked themselves. But for the horrors they've inflicted, they created the context, I would argue, for Sean King. But anyway. Yeah, man, it's a mess out here, man. Tell Sean that's what we need. We need a grow your hair out campaign. Grow your hair. Grow your hair.
I'm gonna see about getting Sean King on the show, man.
Producer Black Daddy, bring him to court. Bring him.
Producer Black Daddy.
Producer Black Daddy. Producer Black Daddy.
If he's really black, he got experience with the courts anyway. So bring him on down, bro. Come on now. Oh boo. Okay, well,
I tapped in at the wrong time. I see.
No.
In the wrong time. Oh man.
Anyway,
y'all out of control this morning, man. That's coming from me.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Anyway, so what else is popping, man? What else?
I do have a little news story. If y'all don't, if we got a little time.
Yes.
What?
Why is it though, bro?
Get loose, Kamal. Work it out.
Thank you, my good sister. I mean, we've talked about this a little before. We're not going to get too deep into it, but there was just an article I was reading the other day. Y'all like how I work those graphics, right? Like, pow. Propaganda war against China aims to expand U.S. hegemony and eradicate socialism. And so I think there's a constant, the only part of the article, the headline says it all in terms of what the current debate is around, the so-called rise of China and what does that mean in terms of two things, right? Whether China is an actual socialist alternative and or whether or not China is an exploiter similar to the Western world, or just whether or not having a 2 or 3 pole world is better than what you got now when you got sort of United States and Western dominance. And then, so the only line I wanted to read from the article was worse than hypocritical are claims of Chinese military aggression, given that the United States spends more on its military than the next 11 countries combined and has been at war for more than 90% of its history. Preposterous characterizations of China's political system as a repressive dictatorship, which covered up COVID-19 pandemic, minimized the fact that the United States leads the world in COVID-19 cases and deaths and possesses a government that is increasingly mistrusted by majorities of its population and indeed much of the world. This just scratches the surface of the intense hypocrisy that plagues the U.S.-led propaganda war against China. And so obviously part of this is that China obviously is challenging not only in the East, right, or around Asia, but is challenging sort of U.S. and again Western systems of international control, i.e., the IMF, the World Bank, some aspects of sort of military and military bases, very small level of that, but also feeding resources to other countries so they have alternatives to the West. But again, some people see that as not necessarily alternatives, but another way to hook countries, but to a different system than the U.S. system. So I just wanted to have a little round robin about that if we had a few minutes of time.
Well, my question is, I'm glad you raised that. My one question to add to this round robin is because I don't follow this closely enough. I have not read this article, but in some of the discussion I've seen about China's involvement in Africa, good or bad or better or worse or akin to what the West is doing, is at what point does the focus become Africa's inability apparently to do this for itself, that even if China is not coming in to be as imperialist as someone else, how does their involvement somehow increase power or more to my concern, redistribution on the continent? So that would be just something I would throw out there, that I get it. The argument against them is often couched in a pro-Western U.S. bias against China and a pro-capitalist bias against something else. But at the same time, I am still, well, why does Africa still have to rely on someone else's investment, even if it's not as malicious? And then when can Africans, going back to, Ear Doctor's reference to Garvey, when is Africa for Africans?
Man. I mean, and that's the bottom line. It's funny because it's Congo week. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to all our folks out in Congo. When you talk about the center of Africa and the center of wealth, you know what I'm saying? And the fact that talking about doing for self, it seems that we make excuses for all these other folks who come on and allegedly want to aid Africans. You know what I mean? While in fact, the continent is rich, it's wealthy. Like we say to the Europeans, I say to the Asians, leave Africa alone, let Africa be. You know what I mean? And I'm sure that we can find our own results and come to our own conclusions. But the thing is, we are so it's crazy. It's like Africa has become dependent upon these outside countries and forces, whether they're colonizers or not. That shouldn't even be the argument. The fact is, it's like, what do we need help with? Military aid from who? From the actual folks who invaded the continent, those who exploit the mineral resources from the continent. So I say shut all that shit down, man, and let's go back to what Patrice Lumumba was talking about, and what Garvey was talking about, doing for self, and making sure Africans handle their own affairs.
It's interesting for me is that it's bringing up like Thomas Sankara. It's like cut off food aid. He said those who control your food control your country, basically, right? But the dilemma still exists, and China does not have the imperialist history of the U.S. and the West in terms of Africa or anywhere else in the world. But I was in Ethiopia now, I guess going on 2 years. The road that connected the metropolis to other cities was built by Chinese firms, right? And I think they collected taxes on it, and there was a time period in which those taxes would go back to China to recoup, and then after some time period, my assumption is, of course, the resources collected would go back into the coffers of the state itself. But I mean, it's probably great to try to figure out, like, how do we separate those folks from Africa? But again, like folks are alluding to, with the type of leadership that's obviously taken control of Africa, which seems to be so dependent on whether it's Western aid or some other aid, because whatever aid comes in gets pilfered into people's individual pockets as opposed to going to whatever it was used for anyway, that they seem to not have any incentive whatsoever to create an Africa for Africans. And so again, we're talking about, mass revolutionary change from the bottom up, because the current leadership isn't anywhere close to, of course, the independent leaders that decolonized Africa officially. But who now, these folks who've been either overthrown or some of themselves who lasted a long time, got a little klepto. It's almost like it's a sorry state to not be able to point to too many African leaders who we think have some of these alternative ideas, and they're putting into practice some of these ideas, which can lead to Africa for the Africans, or independent or non-dependent economic policies, or even if you have to take loans from some other folks, what are the terms of those loans, so that you're not making your country into a debt cycle, which is dependent on giving away large areas of arable land for somebody else to farm, giving away your ports for folks to dock their boats in. All of that stuff seems to be up on the table with these leaders, because again, they're getting those resources and they're putting those resources in their pockets, which they then go to open up bank accounts in European countries and start buying villas and all the rest of it. So that's unfortunately the cycle that we've been left in, whether, as folks are pointing out, whether or not there's a China or not.
Hey, that's why, going again, a shout out to Mjiba Freya Watt and the work that she was doing and is doing around Pan-Africanism and encouraging more engagement around that, because I think that is, and since Clark was also mentioned, his one of his last words to us was Pan-Africanism or perish, that Africans have to unite and have to find a way to make all of this as moot as possible, that it shouldn't be on the whims of one or another, benign or maleficent investor group. Anyway, so I would love to see more of that happen. Yeah.
I was going to say real quickly too. So, but on the other question of the U.S. interests, right? It does. Having a bipolar world, a multipolar world, lessens the opportunity for Western imperialism to some degree. And so real quickly on that level, the rise of any alternative, or maybe not any alternative, but the rise of most alternatives should be looked upon as something to struggle around and with, even if there's contradictions, because it lessens, again, the axis of resistance in the so-called Middle East. That's China, Russia, those things may not share all of the politics of some of us on the left, but the question becomes, there's enough synergy and energy to understand that they're one of their primary goals is to kick out imperialists, right? And so to kick out Western dominance, or to stop the West from controlling what they do with their resources. And I think those are things that we need to think about, how much we can get behind and how we work on that.
No, I think that's a really good point, and I definitely don't want to be misunderstood. I am in full support, and all of that. For the selfishness of Black struggle here, we absolutely should be advocating the rise of another opposition. But I just sometimes feel like we lose sight of that point, that the question of, well, what about Africans? What about the Africans themselves?
Anyway. And being clear, everything Black ain't good. We ain't tripping on like, okay, well, just because you African, then that means that everything's sweet. You know what I mean? I'm disgusted to this day by all of these African niggas who were sponsored and fueled and funded by the U.S., fueled and funded by France and some of these other imperialist countries, man. And it's like, it's sad. I was looking at this video clip yesterday of some of the soldiers who were with Mobutu when they captured Patrice Lumumba, and to see these niggas celebrating, dancing, these soldiers, these African soldiers, you know what I'm saying, because of the fact that they captured Lumumba. It was such a disgusting sight. And I can only think, I'm like, man, if there is a hell, I hope they're still dancing there. You know what I'm saying? Because of the fact that there's so many folks who are willing to trade us in on a grand scale for their own advancement. You know what I mean? And it's like I think there needs to be like a list of the top 100 traders to Africa. You know what I'm saying? Because of the fact that we talk about folks like what's the clown name that sold Chairman Fred out? William O'Neill. We talk about the William O'Neills, but what about the Colin Powells? You know what I'm saying? When they set up hundreds of thousands of people. What about the Mobutus? You know what I'm saying? Who literally helped to orchestrate some shit where over 6 million Africans in the Congo have been slaughtered. You know what I mean? Over the last 25 years or so. So
what are you saying? Are you actually saying that Barack Obama is worse than a William O'Neill or a Cotton Smith?
Would I say that?
That could be a new.
Absolutely.
That could be a new T-shirt.
Barack Obama is the reason that folks like Barack Obama is the reason why the William O'Neills and the Melvin Cotton Smiths even existed in the first place. You know what I mean? So they're part and parcel to this machine that helps to manufacture treacherous, traitorous niggas. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I know you're only being
in my no, but it's I love it. In my first years ago, speaking of News One, when Michael Eric Dyson had a show on Radio One, my first engagement with him on his show when he was hosting with his weekly visit from John McWhorter. I tried to make that very point, and I got verbally whirlwinded by the good doctor. But I said that John McWhorter, I said you should stop inviting him on because he is the intellectual Cotton Smith and William O'Neill. He is here to set up Black radical thought for assassination. I thought it was a good line. I said that about John McWhorter. John McWhorter.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Dyson, but I was saying they were both on the show. So I was saying we were all three in a debate, and I was saying to Dyson, you keep inviting this guy who is the intellectual, he is here to assassinate Black radical thought. He is the intellectual Melvin Cotton Smith, William O'Neill. And Dyson put me in one of them verbal whirlwinds that closed the show. I'll never forget it. It was my first. I was like, damn, that's skillful. Like I was like, you wrong. But that was some skillful verbal abuse I just suffered here to close the segment. But anyway, I really like that point.
Yeah. No, it's true because and those folks paved the way. The William O'Neill, they're the ones who paved the ways for the Obamas, right? Because they killed off radical movements and left us with. Obviously, they didn't do it by themselves. They did it with the overt backing and support. Their role was to do what the United States government told them to do, not the FBI. Right? The United States government. The FBI is an arm of the United States government. It doesn't do things outside of the control of the U.S. government. It acts for the U.S. government. So what they did was for the U.S. government, set up radicals, destroy radical organizations, destroy radical politics to pave the way for liberal, moderate politics, civil rights politics, integrationist politics, electoral politics to be at the forefront of what we consider to be a Black struggle, and to allow those folks to continue to prosper, set the agenda, distribute the propaganda, highlight what they consider the realm of debate, while it's the radicals who are outside of that debate who are looked upon as crazy again, as ultra this and all that kind of stuff, and then therefore have very little influence over and or with the larger Black population, because we don't have the access to that population. And it's those within the United States who've been on a U.S. payroll. And as Jared is saying, it's those who are intellectuals who also deposit themselves as moderates, right? Or who are deposit themselves as liberal left, who allow these moderate and right-wing voices to come on and put out their propaganda as if this is an either or discussion and or it's an even keel discussion of tit for tat, because all they care about really is their paychecks.
Yeah, it's a microcosm of the macrocosm, man. You know what I'm saying? Because of the fact you look at, of course, the FBI does for the U.S. government nationally to like you said, these black radical, quote unquote, black radical leaders, what the CIA does for them internationally with the heads of state in Africa and in all these other different countries where Africans exist. So it's like the song go all around the world, same song. You know what I mean? So
song.
Yeah. So the question at hand, and I dig what you were saying in regards to William O'Neill and folks like William O'Neill and Melvin Cotton Smith paving the way for the Obamas. But and you said, like you said, because of the fact that the government sponsored that particular joint. But really, I would argue that it's the government itself that basically had that bidding done. But at the same time, they paved the way for the Barack Obama because of the fact that whether there was going to be a William O'Neill or Melvin Cotton Smith or whatever, they were going to make sure that they eliminate any of our people who have the gall or the balls to stand up and say, look, man, this is bullshit. So it could have been, whether it was those two clowns or any other folks, from Melvin Cotton Smith to Mobutu, you know what I'm saying? It's the same shit, different toilet,
Oh, no, that's exactly what I meant. I mean, that they're pawns this larger game, right? They're pawn. So you're right. The names could be taken out because if it wasn't those two, as folks know the history of the Panthers, after a certain time period, there was heavy infiltration in the Panthers, and so there's snitches that we know about. Right. There's people who set folks up that we know about, and then there's others that we will probably never know about who are also on the payroll in certain ways, whether or not they were directly on the FBI's payroll and agents of the FBI, or whether or not there were folks they found who were in some trouble or they manufactured some trouble and said, this is what we need you to do surveillance wise. This is what we need you to do in terms of plotting or picking something down wise. So yeah, I think, it's all about who's controlling the sort of the pieces on the table. And that's all goes back to the US government. And again, those who are part of it, including Black folks, including people, we didn't mention in terms of like today's Colin Powell, Lloyd Austin, right? Who is the Secretary of State, right? Who stands in the service of imperialism and stands in that service as a Black face to give us, again, this idea of representative politics that we fall smoothly into, saying like, oh my God, see, it's another first. Look, a Black man can now control the armed forces, which goes around and bombs all these countries. Isn't that fantastic and great? Who can directly control it? We, again, are still trapped in this sort of representative politics that we allow that to happen, the Kamala Harris's and the rest of it, the Barack Obama's, because that wing of the movement, quote unquote, won because the other wing of movement was destroyed. It didn't lose. It was literally destroyed. Which is how we got our political prisoners and political exiles. It was destroyed. And this is what's been left and what we've been dealing with or coping with over the last 40 or 50 years of movement struggle is really just a recovery from the destruction of radical Black politics.
Right. Real quick.
Hey, listen. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say real quick that we should always be reminded that the U.S. is a temp service, and these agents and these snitches and these provocateurs are temp workers. And just like with any other temp agency in America, after you complete that job or you complete that mission, you're disposed of. So all these motherfuckers, they have this 8 minutes of fame, you know what I'm saying, for being sellouts. And then eventually they get rid of them. And like you said, there'll always be another Colin Powell. You know what I'm saying? There'll always be a Melvin Cotton Smith. So anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, the new Colin Powell, just very quickly, was announced this week. Speaking of firsts, Rachel Levine, transgender official sworn in as 4-star admiral, is now believe the highest ranking openly transgender official in the United States. And Levine, I'm wondering, is she also a Jew? Like, is this like a double whammy that they're not reporting? Like I feel like that's a high-ranking Jew too. Shout out to my Jews out there looking for to come up in the ranks of the U.S. military and be the next. So this will be, Dr. Levine will be lionized at the time of their passing, as was Colin Powell, and heralded as a heroic figure for breaking barriers in but that wasn't the real in a way this relates, because the one quick story I did want to throw in here before we got out. Are you all watching this new series, Dope Sick? Anybody seen it?
No,
This
what was
joint
it on?
it's on Hulu, and not that if you can get it by any other means, I'm a by any means necessary media consumer, but I have to admit I'm a big Michael Keaton fan going back to my childhood. I think he's an incredible actor, and I generally like all of his performances. But this joint is about the rise of OxyContin. And it talks about not only the family that produced it, but the way it was marketed, the way the medical community was brought in and complicit in it, and relates very much to a news story that I was just looking at in advertising age. Because now that this pandemic has been going on and all these debates have been raging, it's important that we realize and understand and appreciate that big pharma has a marketing issue. They have to, they need help. And just couple quick points I wanted to bring out of this article was that, as a quick reminder, it makes you wonder. Every country except for the New Zealand and the United States makes it illegal for drug companies to advertise on television. In the case of the Kiwis, there are more sheep than people on their island nation, so maybe they figure viewership is so low it's no big deal. But in the US, it's big business, and the billions spent on advertising are only the tip of marketing iceberg that extends down into doctors' offices, onto drugstore counters, and inside lobbyist briefcases. And Dope Sick shows this process brilliantly. The problem with most healthcare marketing is that it follows an old problem solution paradigm, which assumes that you feel sick and want to feel better. Holding aside the limitations this puts on creativity, it's out of sync with our cultural obsession with wellness that starts with food and extends to exercise and even mental health. It's why Amazon bought Whole Foods and why Peloton and Headspace are now power brands. And the point of this article is telling big pharma, you need to advertise differently to reach a shifting market and audience that now wants wellness as opposed to health. Wellness is new and hip and ongoing. Health is for old people and suggests ill health and a problem. So I just thought it was deep that this series that I started watching that I think is really, really well done, is showing dramatically what the advertising community is trying to do in real time in terms of helping pharma adjust its marketing to reach more of us with its psychological warfare messaging. So anyway, I just thought I would bring that and get to remind, like, this is the only country in the biggest, only country in the world that says, hey, go ahead and advertise, full on about your drugs, and accurate or not, helpful or not, does it solve a real problem that it's not creating? Probably not, but do it anyway, because we're making money to ask any questions,
Or create the problem and then tell people what the problem is so you can create a solution, right? So create a
So I have a new pill. I didn't tell my colleagues here at BPM, but we are marketing. We will be selling. I get the new label. No, it's a new Black Power Media pill that if you buy from us at $50 a pill, we're selling them at the same rate Sean King is selling his t-shirts. You will solve your problems with white supremacy and capitalism will go away. So you just need our one pill. It's our anti-capitalist white supremacy drug from BPM, and you're welcome. So we are solving a problem that obviously you're all suffering from. And so go to blackpowermedia.org.
You can pay us through membership. Just pay up and you get those pills. We're gonna sign the pills. Don't worry, that ink will have no effect on your ability to swallow.
The pill is so strong it kills all of the damage from the ink because it's cleansing us of our white supremacy and capitalism. It is our anti-imperial pill.
And just in case, we have a booster pill, just in case. I just want to put that out.
It comes next. That's coming later. That's 8 weeks or 8 months later, Kamal. Slow down. We got to roll it out.
Chill out, man. You're going too fast. If you pay enough, we'll actually deliver it. I'll deliver it personally. If you check big enough, I'll show up at your crib with a box of
with a glass of water.
Yeah.
Like Morpheus.
Yeah. Forget the red or the blue pill. We got the black pill. Got you.
Just anti-imperial pill, everybody. $50 a shot. It's not a big deal. blackpowermedia.org. Sign up today.
Mine gonna cost more. I gotta put that extra because you know what I'm saying. I mean, I'm gonna put on it. So you know what I'm saying. So,
like the Hennessy, what is it? XP or OP or whatever they call it, XO. The XO.
No doubt.
VSOP or whatever it is.
It's KJ, K-Jama. You know what I'm saying. So we got you. We got you covered. 2 p.m. today. 2 p.m. today. Speaking of black pills. 55th year anniversary of the Black Panther Party will be right here on Black Power Media. Make sure you come back.
Stop biting Roland Martin. Stop biting.
I know. Hey, yo, when I saw that big bubble-headed dude, man, doing the 55th joint the other day, I was like, come on, Roland. I'm trying to build your team. Jared said you hate on us, but I'm not believing that. But now it's like, shit. Anyway.
Hey, I saw Fred Hampton left this post their HU Resist story the other day, and I was like, everybody biting BPM nowadays. But that's all right, man. We all in the ecosystem, man. We all working together, man.
Y'all, see,
like you say, we're gonna get free in spite of ourselves.
In spite of our
shout out to Fred Hampton leftists.
No doubt. I don't even know them, but okay.
I don't either, but they out there.
They out here. Remix Morning Show. We got a lot of dope shit coming up. Make sure y'all look out for it. Get that black pill. It's gonna be on sale now. If they don't have it on the website, don't worry about it. Kamal, what's the Cash App?
I got to make that one up. Free your mind, Black Power. Bam. We got y'all.
Man. This shit is too much. I came in late. I got to leave early. Remix Morning Show.
Remix. See y'all tomorrow.